Everybody wants to get better at Warzone. Nobody wants to keep losing games. Nobody wants to die without getting any kills or anything like that. So loads of people go onto YouTube and try and find guides on how to get better at Warzone, and they get terrible advice. They get advice that I genuinely don't think is helpful. A lot of that advice is stuff that sounds really good, that will make you feel like you're getting better, but it won't actually do anything for you. In this video, I'm going to give you things that I genuinely think will help you and will make you a better teammate to play with. As a disclaimer, anyone who watches my streams will know I'm not amazing. I don't get high kill games. I don't win loads of games. My kill def is like 1.17, something like that. I win some games, but I don't win a lot of games. You know, maybe in a session I'll win one. But when I do these things, I do start getting better and I can feel things improving. And the problem is, I don't follow my own advice half the time. So I'm going to give you a load of advice now, and if you do it, you will start improving at Warzone. Number one, focus on what you can control. Don't worry about everything else that's happening in the game in terms of whining about it, blaming that on your losses. Yes, you will have bad teammates sometimes. Yes, you will lose because somebody had better loot than you sometimes. Or you'll lose because of a glitch. Or you'll lose because the skin is a little bit broken, or you'll lose because of a hacker. You can't control any of those things. You can't control what other people are doing. I get really annoyed at other people from drop shotting. I can't change the fact they're drop shotting, so I need to learn to work around it. So focus on the things you can control. I'm super guilty of when we lose a game of Warzone. I'm often playing with my real life friends, and when we lose a game of Warzone, my brain immediately switches to what could they have done better to stop that from happening, and I start giving advice. I start telling people what they should have done differently. That doesn't help anyone. They're not going to listen to that. They're just going to get annoyed at me for whining at them, and it doesn't make me feel any better because I'm just getting frustrated because I think they're not doing what they should be doing. Instead, think about what you could do differently to improve the situation. Like, yes, you will end up in bad situations in Warzone, but if you can learn how to cope with that, how to mitigate that, that's what's going to make you an amazing player. The best players are the people who, it doesn't matter if their teammates are bad, they can still clutch things up, they can still get things back on track. So just focus on what you can control, what you can change. For the second one, don't worry about the meta too much. And this is something that might be controversial for like a Call of Duty YouTuber to be saying, but I genuinely don't think the meta matters that much. Like, you'll see all of these videos talking about how this gun is crazy overpowered, and when you actually look at statistics, it's like its time to kill is like 1/10 of a second faster than another gun in the same class. That's a very small difference, and it only accounts for if you're hitting every shot. If you're sometimes missing your shots, if you're in a bad location, if you're getting outgunned by like 2 people on 1, none of that really matters very much at all. I like to use the analogy of like a Formula 1 car. If you've got 2 Formula 1 drivers who are at the peak of their skills and have got very similar cars, someone tweaking their car a little bit to have a little bit extra acceleration, a little bit higher top speed, being able to corner a bit faster, that's going to make a huge difference to them and maybe help them to win. So it really, really matters to them. And that's the same in Warzone. When you've got the very top tier players, them finding an attachment that just gives them an extra little bit of recoil control or an extra bit of fire rate might be huge to them and might be the difference that helps them to win. But if you put me in a Formula 1 car against Lewis Hamilton, even if my car's much, much better than his, he's still going to wipe the floor with me because he's a much better driver and I've never been in one before. The skill gap makes a much bigger difference than the sort of tools you're using. And the same thing happens in Warzone. If you go up against a really, really good Warzone player and they're using like a Dragunov and you're using whatever the meta like dish of the day type thing is, you're using some loaded up Bren that's incredible, they're still probably going to kill you because they're better than you. The meta isn't going to make you a better player. And I think lots of people, when they're trying to improve, when they get frustrated because they've lost a game, they look up what the meta is and they think, oh yeah, it's because they're using that meta gun, they're using that meta build. If I was using that, it'd be easy. Like, that's so cheap. And it's not true. Like, these people are beating you because they're better than you. The guns don't make as big a difference as maybe people make out. So just try and pick a gun that you think works really well for you and learn that gun. So if you really want something, like you're like me and your aim isn't very good, but you do like sort of thinking about movement and strategy, maybe you want something that's good at long range, doesn't have much recoil, something like the Cooper Carbine or the Grau, you know, a high fire rate, long range gun. If you're the sort of person that likes rushing in, you're like sprinting around around and shooting people. Maybe you're going to prefer something that does a lot more damage and maybe has a slower rate of fire. Maybe that'll be the thing for you. Who knows? You might really enjoy the Ram. You might really enjoy the Odin. Just try some different guns out. Go into something like Plunder where you can just keep on going in, changing your loadouts up, and find guns that work for you, and then stick with it and learn it. Because if you know your loadout, if you know your weapon, you can sort of instinctively tell when you're going to need to reload. You can tell exactly what range you're going to be effective at. You're going to tell what sort of situations it works in and which ones it doesn't. That's going to be way more valuable to you than picking a gun because somebody else on a video told you to use it, because you're going to be able to shoot people at like 0.9 seconds faster than you could otherwise. Actually, 0.9 seconds sounds pretty huge. It's more like 0.09 seconds. That difference isn't going to make as big a difference to you as just knowing a gun really well and enjoying using it. The third one is to learn a few areas of the map at a time. If you really want to improve, and this is something that's a little bit more like homework, it's a little bit more like work rather than actually just enjoying the game, but just keep dropping into the same place again and again. When I was trying to do the Rebirth 25 wins thing, I hadn't actually played very much Rebirth competitively before that. I just used it for Easter eggs. And I found myself going all over the map and finding it quite difficult because people were attacking me from angles I didn't really understand. I didn't know how they were moving around. Then I started just dropping at bioweapon again and again and again. And I started learning which windows you can jump in through, where you can jump off the roof then come back into the building, how you can move around the building. When you're on the roof, which other rooftops to look for, where do people try to snipe you from. And as soon as I started doing that, I started winning more gunfights and just getting much better at it. Then I moved on to like the Nova 6 factory and thinking, okay, I'm going to land at Nova 6 over and over again. And then you learn how that map works. You learn all the little hop-ups and things like that. I think this is a really useful thing to do on the big map as well, on Caldera, is just to keep landing at the same point again and again and again. And at the beginning, you'll probably die a lot because other people will be doing the same thing. They'll know it better than you. But eventually you'll learn where those hotspots are, where the places are that you can armor up, where's the best place to loot, what to do if there's people on the roof, like what's the best way to attack that, what to do if there's people below you, what's the best way to deal with that. And you start to learn all these strategies, and then you can move on to a different point of interest. Number 4, and this is probably one of the biggest things that will change the way you're playing, is pay attention to how you lose gunfights. It's super easy to focus on the gunfights you win and think, yeah, I'm amazing, look at all these things I did. But you've always got to remember, you could have just won that out of sheer luck. Maybe the other person wasn't paying attention. Maybe they sneezed just as you started shooting them. Maybe they'd forgotten to reload their gun, or they'd forgotten to plate up. There's loads of reasons you can win a gunfight that isn't really due to anything you did. But when you lose a gunfight, that's almost certainly due to something that you did wrong. So pay attention to what you did. I know for me, there's 3 things that I do wrong. Number 1, sometimes I shoot people in the legs. For whatever reason, I aim really low down, so it takes me a lot more bullets to kill someone because I'm constantly shooting them in the legs, whereas they're shooting me in the chest and the head. So I need to learn to just aim a little bit up, just to aim a little bit higher when I'm looking around. The second thing is, I tend to stand right out in the open. So as soon as I start seeing someone shooting, I stand out right out in the open and start shooting them, thinking I'm going to get a kill. And then I get shot by the teammate, or I get shot by them because they're in a much better position than me. I need to think about cover. I need to think about getting into cover and then engaging targets. And the third thing I do is, I stand perfectly still when I'm shooting. I don't move around, I don't strafe. I don't jump around or anything like that, which means especially in close range gunfights, I lose them a lot because the other person's hopping around and I'm struggling to keep up with it while they're just shooting a stationary target and it's super easy to kill me, or I'm crouched or something, so I'm really easy to kill because they're just shooting my chest all the time. So think about the things that go wrong when you die. Like when you die, see it as like an exciting learning moment where you can be like, okay, what happened there? What made it easier for them? What can I do differently that will stop that from happening again? And then try to put in that in action, and then you will do better. As soon as I go into a game thinking, okay, this time I'm really going to think about cover, or I'm really going to think about movement, I do so much better. But it is something you have to consciously think about. And number 5, and this is kind of linked to the last point, don't worry too much about how the pros play. I think lots of people watch people like, FIFA Kills or Vicstar or people like that, watch Aiden, and they see them sprinting around, taking on 1v4s, jumping into buildings, popping a UAV, and then immediately running after people, driving a truck up and then just hopping out and trying to take down a whole team. And they can do it because they've got thousands of hours in this game and games like this that helps them to have those kind of skills that let them take on other people. You probably don't, and I mean, I definitely don't. So don't watch them and think, oh, well, that's definitely what I need to do. Try watching people who are much closer to you in terms of their kill death. There are streamers like me out there who aren't that amazing. You can watch people like me, and if I'm a bit better than you, then maybe you can learn from something. Just to get all like learning theory about you, because I used to be a teacher if you didn't know. A guy called Lev Vygotsky called this the zone of proximal development, that kids, he was talking about kids, learn much better when they learn from someone that's slightly better than them at something. That's how you can learn best. You can't learn from watching someone who's like miles ahead of you. You have to kind of do it in increments. So try and find people who are a bit better than you and learn how they're doing it. That's one of the reasons skill-based matchmaking works really well. I always hear people saying, oh, if there's no skill-based matchmaking, you'd be up against really good players and you could learn from them. That's not how that works. You'd be up against people who are so good you can't comprehend how they destroyed you. Instead, you want to be losing to people who are a little bit better than you, because then you can slowly get up to their level, and then you'll be up against more people who are a little bit better than you, and you can keep on chasing that. And number 6, and I think this is really important just for your own kind of well-being, but also for the well-being of the community, don't be toxic. You're just going to make yourself unhappy. You're just going to get tilted if after every time you die, you're on the voice comm screaming, you're shouting abuse at people at the end of games, you're trying to be some kind of horrific, you know, tough guy where you're like, yeah, I'm going to show them by insulting them. It makes it worse for everyone, including you. Like, it just gets you all riled up. You don't need to talk to strangers online. Like, there's no need to do it at all. Sometimes I leave voice comms on where I can hear them, but I never talk back. Sometimes it's funny hearing people like getting shocked when they get killed and something like that. But then you also hear those toxic idiots that everybody hates. If you really want to talk to people, maybe just throw out like a GG or well played. Just be nice to them. If anything, that might be funnier that you're just being polite. You're actually being sporting while other people are being toxic. Just try to make the community a better place. There is a place for like trash talk and stuff like that. It never needs to get racist or misogynist, all of that nonsense. Like, that just makes you a piece of shit. Don't do that. But there's a place for just making fun of people a little bit, and that's when you're playing with your friends who you know really well. That's what banter is all about. Like, banter in its sort of true sense is about pushing the boundaries of your friends a little bit to check they're okay. You know, you sort of push them a little bit and you see how they react, and if they laugh it off, then you know they're okay. That's what's like the fun side of it. It's a nice thing you do with people you know. It's not insulting strangers on the internet. So just don't do that. Now, if you like this video, if you like me doing tips that are maybe a bit different from some things that other people say, don't forget to leave a like on this video. If you're new here, subscribe, turn your notifications on. I stream here as well as make all my videos on here. So if you have those notifications on, you'll get told as soon as a new one goes live. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.